on the ASUN special episode, but it is especially special this week as we have the Rev, Dustin Helton, on to kind of be a moderator, but also a guest. So, Rev, how is everything going?
Going great, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm here to make sure that, y'all, play nice for the next for the next
What
hour.
Is that? JSU doesn't know anything about that.
Well, they don't know much about playing good consistently either. But anyways, this should be a fun one with the game this week. So thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we had to make sure Rev came on to make sure that Brandon didn't have any personal fouls like the rest of the football team does. So, but that's just the beginning.
Wait. I know this is about to be a good conference rivalry, but there is no need to take jabs yet.
I'm just joking around, but no, this we're happy to have you on, Rev. So thanks for coming on. And yes, as I said, he is a moderator this week because UCA and Jacksonville State are playing, and it just seems right to have somebody on to make sure we don't get at each other's throats. But both of us, we've got our team gear on. I'm rocking a jersey tonight. Brandon's got his Gamecock gear on. So we're just going to jump right into it if you guys are good with it. I mean, I don't think there's much to get to other than football. All right, let's do it. Let's recap week. I guess that was week 8. That was week 8. So UCA got one down in Beaumont over Lamar, 49-38. Jacksonville State took a beating to Sam Houston, 42-7. It is what it is. North Alabama gets 2 in a row.
I know, Lions, yes.
Go Lions. They beat Charleston Southern 45-22. They didn't just get a win; they got a blowout win. So, congrats to those guys. And then Kennesaw State did what they were supposed to over Campbell and got a 30-7 victory. So they just keep winning. So we'll jump right in, recap a little bit. We'll start with the Sam Houston win over Jacksonville State because it was the most fun one to watch for the week. So Brandon, I'll let you kind of hop into it and say what you thought about the game.
Okay, so I actually had a free weekend and I took some me time. I went to a marching contest in Birmingham with a friend of mine. And I did actually catch the very beginning of the game where JSU scored and then Sam Houston tied it up. And then I just turned it off because I knew how it was going to happen. And that exactly just happened. Sam Houston walked all over us.
I got to read the text. Rev, you'll think this is funny. Brandon texted me very early in the ballgame. And I know it's early, but what is JSU doing? Like, what the hell? But and
because I honestly did not expect them to score that early. No, I didn't even expect them to score until maybe the second half because Sam Houston put in their third strings.
No, and but here's the deal: Jacksonville State's a talented team. It was good early. That's how. But that's what Sam Houston does. Sam Houston's the number 1 team in the country for a reason. Rev, did you get to watch any of that one?
Yeah, so I was at a Oktoberfest festival, drinking beer and wearing lederhosen. But I did watch some of the game on my phone. And the thing about Sam Houston that they are just such a quick strike sort of team, such a very explosive team. That first rush for a touchdown, Jefferson went for 33 yards, and got in, and they will just turn around and start putting on points real quick. And it's just like a boxer just, getting you up against the ropes and just laying into you. Like, it's really hard to come back from that whenever they're able to do it. Last week you said, Brandon, that you thought it would either be closer to be like 52-10. And I felt the exact same way. I was like, if depending on which JSU showed up, it could have been a close game, but unfortunately it didn't happen. And, Sam's the real deal. As much crap as I like to give them, they show that they're going to probably be in Frisco. That was probably the toughest remaining game on their schedule outside of Eastern Kentucky. And so they basically can just, Deion Sanders their way into the end zone, do a high step and high step their way into Frisco at this point.
No, I agree. If you haven't checked out Rev's podcast, it's Straight Out of Whack Pigskin. So it's the football version of the Whack podcast. So make sure you check that out on the FCS Fans Nation Network. I was on earlier tonight. We did a live stream, and I was telling you, Ramon Jefferson for Sam Houston, he's a dog. I mean, that dude can play. that first touchdown run was impressive. But Eric Schmidt's got all the offensive weapons around him that they need to be successful. So yeah, Sam Houston being one of the most balanced teams early midway through the year does not surprise me. And so yeah, seeing them do that to Jacksonville State was not necessarily a surprise to me. I don't think it was really to anybody. But moving on, we had UCA getting one over Lamar, 49-38. It was one of the weirder games of the week, up 35-7 at half, and give up 31 points in the second half to a not good Lamar team. But like I said earlier tonight on Straight Out of Whack, defense came out. They started running a little tempo against us, and our defense did not respond well to it. I didn't think it seemed like we weren't set a lot, and even the commentators, which may I add, were horrible. Oh God, I was ripping them on Twitter. Every Division I school should have some commentators that can be competent. But I don't know who the Lamar commentators are, and maybe they listen to this, and I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. That was bad. But whatever. They were even talking about how UCA's defense was they're not set, and we weren't. There were several times that they caught us off guard, and we had to pay for it a little bit. But I think I said earlier tonight, we played like the 85 Bears in the first half on defense, and then in the second half, I don't know, the Dolphins or the Jets this year. I mean, it was a stark contrast from first to second half. So, but still, Darius Hale had second most rushing yards for a single game in UCA history. And then we had 350 on the ground, which is the first time we've rushed for over 300. And I guess we did it in 2016, I think, against Lamar. But no, it was nice to see the run game going, but I wish that we wouldn't have given up 31 points in the second half. I don't know. I know you got to watch it, Rev. Brandon, did you?
No.
Oh, sorry. Of course. No, it was hard to watch us try to give one away to Lamar, but I also saw how good we can be. I mean, when we're 35-7, same way with Eastern Kentucky last week, this team is very talented and can win ball games and can outscore anybody. It's just a matter of can we play a full football game. So, but not a lot to say about that one. Going on, North Alabama, like we said, gets a win over Charleston Southern, and it is a blowout. So I was pumped about this one. We were talking about North Alabama last week a little bit, how, they came in and it was like, hey, they're kind of moving on up. They are going to, be relevant in the next few years. And it was like, man, it felt like this year had kind of taken a step back. I was hoping that they didn't go winless. And my God, they got their second win in a row. So Brandon, tell me what you thought.
I'm happy for UNA. Didn't see the game, but I was keeping up with the score, and I was like, "All right, Lions, let's do this." I'm hoping they keep winning for the rest of the season.
They get a gauntlet of 2 weeks here for them against Monmouth and then Kennesaw. So not sure that it'll turn into a 4-game win streak. And I say a gauntlet, it's a gauntlet for them. But we'll see. Monmouth is probably a lot better team than Charleston Southern. So we will see how they do moving forward. But they did look impressive against Charleston Southern, who obviously is not the greatest program in the world. And then Kennesaw, what about those Owls? They keep winning, keep moving up. And it looks like they're on their way to, being I guess this week, what were they? They were 12th in the polls. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, they're cracking the top 10. So what do you think about Kennesaw, Rev?
I think I actually had them outside of my top 10 in my poll. I can't remember. I think I actually had them at 11. But, they've honestly impressed me with some of their games this year. Not to start picking on Brandon, but the game against Jacksonville State, that was just a demolishing of at the time what I thought was a really good team. I'm interested to see because they're gonna win. I think they're gonna win the conference. I think they're gonna win, and they're gonna be in the playoffs. I'm interested to see what sort of draw they get. If they're punished by regionalization or what sort of match. Because if they get the right matchup against a team that can't stop the rush, they could make a decent playoff run. So I'm watching them with interest. I mean that I don't see them struggling the rest of the year. I think they're just going to blow through the rest of their schedule, and who knows? They could be almost pushed. I don't think they'll push top 5. They could be about an 8 or 9, I think, in the polls, unless some teams start to tumble at the top.
I think there's a clear chance for them to make a case for a seed at the end of the year, like an 8 seed or something like that, and not have to play first round, which would be awesome to get a bye week like that. Because, like you said, get a good draw in the second round, and you're looking at possibly being in the quarterfinals. So we'll talk about playoffs here shortly, but we'll just bebop right along through the agenda here. Throw up some stats poll or throw some numbers at you here. Sam Houston came in, talking AQ7 a little bit here. Sam Houston came in, obviously still unanimous number 1. I don't know if they were unanimous. That's a bad term. Kennesaw came in at 12. Eastern stayed there right at the cusp at 25. And then SFA and Jacksonville State still receiving votes right there outside the top 25. So does anything surprise you? I know both you gentlemen have a individual top 25 that you keep up with every week. So Brandon, I'll go to you first, and let me know what you thought about this week's rankings.
The only thing that surprises me is EKU being so low. I personally have them at 18. After that win against Central Arkansas and after the chaos that has happened the past 2 weeks, they have climbed in my poll up to the top 20. Like, I think everybody, probably outside of the AQ7, is looking at EKU and being like, oh, it's EKU. When we've seen them play every week and we've seen them get better and better and better and better, they should be higher. They should be ranked higher.
Yeah. I hate to say this. I mean, I have them at 23, and here's the reason why. They still lost to Indiana State. Let's just not forget that. Now, granted, it was early in the season. They've molded together. They've become a good team. I think I probably still have them undervalued in my poll. I think I probably need to honestly change that. But, I think the true test for them is going to be their last 3 weeks of the year whenever they have Sam, SFA, and Jacksonville State. That is a gauntlet. I don't, and if they can get 2 out of 3 of those games, I mean, they're easily in the playoffs. They would, if they could get, if they get 2 of those games, they're going to be easily probably a top 15 team, so yes, I have them ranked, and like I said, ranked 23, but again, I probably undervalued them on the poll, and I can admit that I made a mistake. It happens.
No, and the only thing I like to counter with when somebody's like, oh, they lost to Indiana State, look at like FBS rankings. Look at, Ohio State, drops an early one to Oregon, and which I know they started higher, so it's hard to compare them to Eastern Kentucky. But here they are pushing top 4 because they're doing what they're supposed to do as the year goes along. And we've seen them, after they lost to Indiana State, I didn't think we would have trouble with them, which granted in the first half we did not. But I thought they would lose a lot of games that they've won here later in the season. So I do feel like they're better than the 25th ranked team, because the 25th ranked team tells me that, you can it's kind of like a plus or minus 2 or 3. So like they could be anywhere from 22 to 28. And I feel like, 22 is probably like the middle of their spread. Like they could be anywhere from 19 to 25. But I don't know. I do think they're a little undervalued nationally. And Brandon, I think that's a good point. Like a lot of people look at Eastern Kentucky and go, oh, it's Eastern Kentucky. Like they're a doormat. They're the doormat of the OVC. Just even though they've had some success, way back in the 70s, but no, I do think they're a little undervalued. So I think they'll continue to move up. Like you said, they do have a gauntlet coming up, and we will get to that here shortly, because that starts not this week actually. So it'll start next week against, who do they play next week? Who's the first game in that gauntlet? Do you know?
It's SFA, isn't it?
Okay,
it's SFA.
Because they play Sam Houston and Jack State back to back.
Which, Sam Houston's the only game where I would say like, okay, they're going to lose. I think the EKU SFA game will be interesting because that's SFA that blew them out last year. That wasn't even a close one last year, which I think EKU has improved drastically. Parker McKinney's playing better ball. He's moving the ball around in the pocket a little bit. So anyway, we will. Anything else to say about the rankings before we move on?
I will say that at the beginning of the year, Jamie Williams did his whole full top 120 whatever, and he had EKU in the 40s. And I argued with him. I said, "Do you really think they're that good?" And he was like, "Hey, last year they beat UCA." And I said, "Yeah, but they also lost to SFA, and UCA also beat them in the return game." So I think he was onto something. And so I mean, shout out to him for I mean, honestly nailing it, catching what they're doing there. Other than that, other ranking stuff, I don't think there's any sort of thing. I don't know if SFA should be receiving votes yet. I think they're receiving votes just based upon the record, not upon the resume of the schedule they played. So I'm still kind of surprised to see that the folks in the poll are voting for them. I think that's a little lazy. No offense to the stats voters, but I don't think they should be receiving votes at the moment. I think they would have to get a win over Eastern Kentucky or UCA before you realistically started giving them any sort of top 25 vote.
To add on that, whoever is still voting for JSU needs to be shot. Because we should not be receiving votes right now. Absolutely not. We have 2 weeks to build it back up before we play EKU. Then we can talk about possibly being ranked at the end of the year.
You're just discounting this week. We have 2 weeks to build it up before we play EKU. Like, oh, we got 2 little cakewalk games before we play, the Giants, Eastern Kentucky.
All right, let's get through the rest. Let's get through the rest of the stuff before we
we'll tone it back. Sorry, I'm getting a little wild over here. No, I agree. I don't know that there should be 5 teams out of the AQ7 and ASUN receiving votes. I think that's a little trigger happy with SFA and Jacksonville State. Going on though, the poll that matters more than the stats poll is the AQ7 power poll, and we are all voters in that. Rev votes in that. And so here it is, a little bit of shift from last week. It's really just a flip-flop. Jacksonville State fell to 5, and UCA moved up to 3 with our ever-impressive 11-point victory over Lamar. But EKU stays at 2. Like I said, UCA at 3. SFA stays at 4. Jacksonville State falls to 5. And then Abilene and Lamar holding it down there in 6 and 7 as they have been all year. And I'll go ahead and say I think this is exactly the poll that I voted. This is exactly how I voted. So you can tell me why I'm wrong and tell me how you voted. And we'll start with you, Rev.
No, I think mine's the exact same too. And it's kind of, I mean, you look at it and you say, well, you have SFA over Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State did win that game. But yeah, if you look at that game, SFA outperformed Jacksonville State.
Who said that, Brandon?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, SFA, the thing they couldn't do is
But what were the results?
Well, that's exactly it. But if they played again, do you think the same results will happen? I don't know. That's the thing. That's what I look at that way, right? So, I mean, honestly, you could probably flip-flop those two. But, I mean, the past couple week performances of Jacksonville State just haven't been great. So, I mean, it's just kind of hard to keep ranking them above some.
I don't know if y'all can hear me. Y'all just keep talking. My mic's messed up.
No, you're fine. We can hear you. Go ahead, man. So, I mean, that's just my thought on it. I mean, other than that, everything's just about right. There's, I think my poll is the exact same as that. What about yours, Brandon?
I have JSU and SFA swapped. Pretty much because JSU beat SFA. As I'm trying to place these teams how it's going to end up. So if a team beats a team, I make sure that team is ranked above that team.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you.
Oh, cool. So, Brandon, I want to counter that because a power poll in my mind is who do I think is a better football team? Like offense, defense, overall. And yes, it's easy to say, okay, the better football team wins the game, but SFA did outperform Jacksonville State in that game. Jacksonville State had a couple early takeaways that they were able to convert to points that kind of did the game in early. And, SFA never could just totally recover from that. They basically started the game down 14-0. And it's hard to win ball games that way, but that's why I still have SFA over Jacksonville State, which I did last week as well. So that's consistent for me. I've had SFA over Jacksonville State 2 weeks in a row now, even after that loss.
And to counter, I have been consistent. I've had JSU above SFA ever since we beat them.
Okay.
Man, sounds like a homer. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you said the same thing about me. So
what a hack.
What a hack. Where's the hack of the week for Joe DeLeon?
Yeah, for real. I don't know if Joe DeLeon listens to this or not, but if he does, he'd be proud. No, so yeah, if thanks to all the guys that vote in that poll, by the way, Rev, we appreciate you voting in it, and then all the guys that vote in there. Hopefully they watch the podcast. That'd be kind of lame if they didn't, but hopefully they're getting the shout out they deserve. But polls don't matter, but football games do. And so we're moving on into week 9 of football season, which is insane when you only have 12 weeks of football, regular season football. It is crazy that we're moving into week 9. So just a little preview of the schedule, a little rundown. Kennesaw State gets Gardner-Webb this week. Jacksonville State gets UCA. EKU and Lamar are playing there in Richmond, and then Austin Peay travels to UT Martin to kind of be the Skyhawks' first. I wouldn't even call it a real test compared to Jacksonville State. So, yeah, they get another test. How about that? They're in let's see. Oh, in Martin. I was like, where's UT Martin? It's in Martin. But so we'll start off with the quick hitters, Kennesaw State and Gardner-Webb. I do not think this game will be just too close of a game or too wild. I think Kennesaw State, they're impressing me. They get better as the year goes on. I think they run all over Gardner-Webb and get probably another 30 to single-digit score because that seems to be what they're doing this year.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go a little more than you. I think it might be 40-something to single digits.
Gardner-Webb's too crazy.
Gardner-Webb's not that good. So and seeing KSU play in person, like it's just like you will. They've been impressive. I don't know if it was that loss to Georgia Tech or what, but they've just been impressive since then. So I got the Owls winning big.
Yeah, I mean, I want Gardner-Webb to be a better team, right? I just kind of like every year I'm just watching like, come on, just a little more, right? You know, you can, but it's not going to happen. It's going to be, I would agree with Brandon. It's going to be like a 42. I don't know Gardner-Webb scores on them, but it'll be like a 42-7 type game. Like it's going to be over pretty quick, and not just because KSU is going to run the entire time. Like it's not going to be close.
I agree. And we'll skip Jacksonville State UCA because it is our game of the week and move on to Eastern Kentucky and Lamar. This is another game. I think if Eastern Kentucky plays the way they are capable of, running quarterback can give that Lamar defense some fits. And that EKU line's not bad either. I think EKU probably gets the ground game going for the most part against Lamar. And especially with Lamar making the long trip to Richmond. I don't know if they'll fly or not, but that's a tough trip to make all the way out to Eastern Kentucky. So, yeah, I'm going to say Eastern Kentucky gets a pretty big win over Lamar.
Agreed. Extremely big. Like I am talking, I would not be surprised if EKU hangs 50 on Lamar.
Here's how bad it is in Beaumont. Lamar has a 5-star kicker, and he's not their starting kicker. So he's sitting on the bench. So it's just a mess down there. Yeah.
Wait, time out. You said 5-star kicker.
They have a 5
he's
kicker.
Not the starter.
Yes, that is correct. They recruited a 5-star kicker, and he is not their starting kicker. So
that's almost as good as Gross's coaching schemes.
So yeah. So I mean, that's just the thing. Like, it's just such a mess down there in Beaumont. I mean, besides the fact that their stadium's in a horrible spot too, the whole thing about that program is a mess right now. But yeah, it
smells so bad.
It's awful
at the stadium.
I don't know. I know you've been, Will, Brand. I don't know if you've ever been, but when you sit there, your view is just oil tanks. That's all that's there. And
it smells so bad.
Yeah. So this will be Eastern Kentucky's going to just easily take this one. I think they'll hang 50 on Lamar just because Lamar doesn't have a defense. So apparently they have an offense because they hung 38 on UCA, but they don't have
7 in the first half.
It's just I had to get that dig in there, but no, this one will be over quick. That 50 EKU will get 50. Lamar might get like 10.
I agree. I don't think it'll be close. Going on, Austin P, UT Martin, a UT Martin team that's surprising everybody, playing well, looking like they could win the OVC and get an auto bid there into the playoffs. And then Austin P, who's kind of been up and down, a little streaky as the year goes, but just definitely an intriguing one just because, Austin P's talented. We know that. We know what they've got there on the sideline, but UT Martin has put it together for the most part all year long. So I don't think Austin P can pull it off there in Martin, even though I don't think it's necessarily a super hostile environment. I think UT Martin's just the more complete team this year and pulls it out. And their only loss right now is an FBS loss, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm going to say they keep it going undefeated against FCS opponents.
While I think UT Martin is the best team, it's always a tradition that the OVC champion drops a game they shouldn't lose. I am picking the Governors in an upset this game.
You beat me to it because the Governors like to play spoiler. It's what they do too. They did it in the spring season as well. That's just what happens. So yeah, I think this is
Let's not talk about that game.
But I think this is another one of the instances where you see it happen that Austin P comes in, they shock everybody except for anyone who follows OVC football and knows that this is bound to happen. So I'm taking the Governors also.
What's interesting about this game is UT Martin, I don't know if they are ranked pretty high in the actual poll, but in my poll they are actually just outside of the top 10. And it's just because they keep winning. Not necessarily because I think they are a top 10 team. It's just chaos happens and they keep winning. If UT Martin wants to get into the top 10, whether it be my poll, anybody else's poll, this is the week to do it. This is your trap game. This is your test game. If you want to get in the top 10, take care of business, beat Austin P. But I just don't think it's going to happen.
They are sitting at 12 right now, so they're just outside the top 10. So very likely that if they did win and a couple teams did not, they could move on up into the top 10, which would be, as far as I'm concerned, unexpected. UT Martin coming in and ending the year in the top 10. I didn't expect that, especially if they get past Austin P. All they've got left is Tennessee State, Tennessee Tech, and Southeast Missouri. So
trash teams, especially that last one.
Pretty favorable schedule there after this game, if I may say so myself. So moving on, we have got the game of the week. If you haven't guessed it already, we have got the UCA Bears from Conway, Arkansas, making the long trip to Jacksonville, Alabama to take on Jacksonville State Gamecocks. And is what really is, not that important of a game, honestly, because both teams' playoffs hopes are pretty.
Actually, if we want to get technical, it is an important game for JSU because it keeps our playoff hopes alive.
I don't know what kind of playoff hopes you're dreaming up over there, but I don't think
I'm talking about being one of those last teams in.
Oh man, we'll get to playoffs here in a minute. We are gonna keep the playoff segment rolling when we talk about some playoff scenarios. But just a spoiler alert, like Rev said earlier to me, it's Eastern Kentucky or SFA out of the for the second bid. If we even get it, I still think we are probably a one bid league because I do think SFA will drop another game, and I do think Eastern will drop another game. Even though Eastern could probably drop one more and still get in, I think they drop two, honestly, but. We'll get to that in a minute because we're talking UCA and Jacksonville State. But it's going to be a good game, not only because it is your two hosts' schools, alma maters, but because you've got two teams that honestly have underperformed. You've got 2, 3, and 4 teams coming in that were both top 15 teams as the season started. So a little disappointing overall for both teams to be sitting sub 500, but it's an opportunity for one of them to get back to 500 and one of them to, really be playing for a winning season. So, Rev, I'm going to let you take it away, and you are now the host of this podcast, and I will answer to you, and Brandon will do the same.
I feel like you should drop the Michael Buffer, let's get ready to rumble sort of piece right here when you edit
Ooh,
it.
I could do that. Like
Just
I
take
said,
what I just said out and just put it in. And
yeah, I could do that.
all right. So first of all, gentlemen, let's play nice. Okay. Nothing below the belt. Let's talk football. So I guess the first question I have here is when we look at these two teams, we see that UCA does have such a very potent offense. With Braylon Smith at quarterback, they've got Winningham, they got Hudson at wide receivers, they've got Hale as a running back. They have a lot of weapons. Jacksonville State hasn't necessarily shown the ability to stop the run, especially when they play against Kennesaw State. But Jacksonville State has shown the ability to force some turnovers. So, Brandon, I'm going to go to you on this one. How do you think Jacksonville State can handle the potent offense that the UCA Bears bring to this game?
For the love of God, be aggressive. For the love of God, be aggressive, please. I have not seen it. I've seen spurts of it from here and there, not for a full game. If you want to beat UCA, you have to play aggressive on the defensive front. Now, our secondary, I've lost hope for our secondary. Like, there's no way we can, there's just no way. Our defensive line, though, is actually really, really good. Play aggressive, boys. Please play aggressive.
Yeah, I agree. The one thing I think I've seen with Jacksonville State too is they also take some really stupid penalties that they shouldn't take, and that's going to really hurt them against what UCA has. Now, Will, kind of counterpoint to this. Jacksonville State does have Zarek Cooper. Jacksonville State does have some weapons. UCA has shown that they don't want to play. That's basically a tale of two halves, right? They have one half where they play amazing and one half where they are a dumpster fire. What do you think it'll take for UCA to play a full game to shut down Cooper and Jacksonville State's potentially potent offense?
Man, and I think about it defensively. I don't think about like keys to the game defensively. I guess offensively we need to go with what works. We were rushed for 250 in the first half, and then decided we wanted to throw the ball when we came out of halftime, which I didn't necessarily understand it, but I'm not a coach. I don't claim to be one. But defensively, getting after Zarek Cooper is a big deal. We're going to have to get some penetration on the defensive line, or we're going to have to stay away from pass interference calls. Our secondary is usually in good position, but we tend, like I said earlier, to be a little handsy. So even though we're in good position, we do draw a lot of PI calls. So you're going to have to make sure we, secondary wise, we get our heads turned around, see the ball. That way we're not, running through a receiver while he's trying to come back to a ball. So if we can stay away from giving up stupid penalties, I know Lamar had like 3 or 4 PI calls against us that really kept like 3 or 4 drives going in the second half. And so you're talking, 21, 28 points there. But if we can stay away from penalties like that, our secondary is not bad. They're always in good position. We don't get beat just a whole lot. I know we did a couple times against Sam Houston, but I mean, who doesn't? I mean, like that's kind of the name of the game. Like when you've got Jaquez Ezzard and Ife Day, you're going to get beat some. But we've gotten better since then. If we can just be consistent, man. I mean, see what they're doing that's working, adjust to it. And honestly, I like our chances if it's I don't necessarily want to be down big or up big at half. Like I would always love to be up big, but I think if we're in a tight game, we adjust well, we'll be okay. I don't know. Our adjustments just haven't been good when we've been up big at halftime, if that makes sense. And I always think adjustments are like a chess match. Like you've got to kind of think ahead, one move ahead of your opponent. And I don't know that we've done that so far, but I think we'll be okay if we can get after Zarek Cooper a little bit, make him get out of the pocket because he does tend to make some bad decisions throwing the ball. And if we get a couple of those bad decisions and take them back as turnovers, that would be very helpful.
See, I was going to ask the question, who outcoaches who, right? Or I wouldn't say outcoaches, but who underperforms as a coach between John Gross and Brown, because they both tend to.
You already know the answer to that.
I mean, I do, but they both are notorious for making some bad coaching decisions, and we've seen it this year. So that's another thing to watch. I kind of wanted to set an over-under on stupid penalties between the two teams, because I think you'll see a total between Jacksonville State and UCA. I think you'll see I would set the over-under at 9 stupid penalties combined not for each team, but just combined, like JSU talking or bad pass interference calls against UCA. So Brandon, what are you taking? The over or the under on
I'm going over with JSU having more.
Well,
I'm gonna take the under because we've had, as far as like unsportsmanlikes go, we we had a few early in the year that we were making some dumb unsportsmanlike conduct, but that's one thing Coach Brown does not stand for. In 4 years of playing, I do know that he will not stand for dumb penalties like that, and we've cleaned it up. Now I think the PI calls, I think we control them a little bit better. I think that. Especially after a week where they were a problem, you probably you fix it, this week in practice. So I think we'll be okay there. So I'm going to take the under because I don't think UCA will be penalized as heavy as we have been.
Yeah, and the reason I say over is because DJ Coleman, ever since the FSU game, he has ran his mouth and it has costed us stupid penalties. Like I said on Cocky Nation, I believe it was last week, shut your mouth. Play ball and shut your mouth.
Yeah, I saw that on Cocky Nation. I just started cracking up whenever you said that, and the fact that you had it at the bottom in a banner was even better. Like it was the best thing. I will say you two have been very polite about this. This game, and I think it's a good one. I think it's honestly, I know that for UCA, playoff hopes are done because UCA has absolutely underperformed this season. Granted, they did have the loss to Arkansas State wasn't so bad, but losing to Missouri State and then losing to Sam, and they've underperformed. Now, so I want to hear some score predictions from you guys on this one, and we're going to go with the visiting Bears first. So
okay, we get the tee box. I will say this: going back to your coaching point, I think we are the better coach team. I think as far as like having a handle and fixing problems, Coach Brown is a heck of a coach. I think Coach Brown is a heck of a coach. I know you said that you thought he made some bad coaching decisions, but I don't necessarily think, like, I have nothing to complain about with Coach Brown's coaching. I think he's a heck of a commander-in-chief for our football program. And so all the props in the world to that guy. So I think that coming down, especially in the rain, JSU's given up 180 rushing yards a game, which I know a lot of those came against Kennesaw to skew the average a little bit. But UCA is running the ball better now than we have in a very long time. And so I'm going with the Bears pulling it out. We have not scored less than 35 points in, I guess we've scored over 35 in all but 2 games, and that was against Missouri State and A-State. So we I don't think Jacksonville State's defense is any better than either of those 2 teams. So I think we score 35 or more, and I don't think Jacksonville State's offense in the rain is potent enough to keep up. So I'm going to say we win 38 to, let's go, 38-24.
All right. Brandon, you take a swing?
Yeah. So trying not to be a homer, being realistic. I think what's going to bite JSU in the butt is, number one, we have never played well in the rain. I'm hoping that weather forecast changes between now and then, because I would love for this amazing football game to be played with absolutely no rain and it be clear as a bell outside. But if it does rain, that's going to be an issue for JSU. For some reason, it's like Southern drivers on the road. When it rains, they forget how to drive. When it rains, JSU forgets how to play. I don't know why that is. It always happens. As far as like the penalties will bite us in the butt as well. If DJ Coleman does not control his mouth, which apparently last week he did, because we had 3 or 4 penalties for 30 yards or something like that. So maybe we can turn things around as far as penalties go. But if he does control his mouth, I think that will eliminate the dumb penalties. Gamecock fans, please don't criticize me and chastise me. I'm actually picking UCA by 10, 34-24.
Wow.
Hell has frozen over.
Yeah, I was about to say, reaching down as the ground cold because.
JSU football players that listen to this, you better prove me wrong. You better prove me wrong.
Look, I think you both have brought up some really good points on this game. I'm going to give 2 scores, right? And here's why. If it rains, then yeah, I don't think JSU will be able to compete. And I don't know if UCA will score as high as Will's saying. I think you would probably see. I don't know. Maybe let's say like 31-17-ish game, right? If it doesn't rain, then I think that gives Jacksonville State more of the opportunity to play and to perform. That's when I think you would see a closer game. I don't think, though, that Jacksonville State has the defensive capability to shut down UCA's offense, especially if it's not raining where they can air the ball out. I mean, Braylon Smith is just a great quarterback. He's got, great 1-2 punch with the receiving core. But I think that game would tend to be a little closer because the lack of rain would help Jacksonville State's offense and help them move the ball. So if it doesn't rain, I'm going to put that at a 38-28 type game. I think, but unfortunately for JSU, that does also then end JSU's playoff hopes this year. And of course, that makes it a little more interesting in Jacksonville with it being the last year of John Gross's contract and what's going to happen with the future there. So, I mean, it makes it interesting. But yeah, I think you have to pick JSU. But I think too, if you look to the future of the ASUN, this is going to be the pinnacle rivalry. This is going to be the premier game. This is going to be the one that everybody watches. It'll be like this, Battle Piney Woods in the Southland Conference. It'll be like the brawl.
Oh,
Well,
did we lose him?
I don't know.
I can see you. Can you see me?
I can see you.
I can see a frozen Rev.
Yep. Until we get him back, I will say this. The only way I see JSU possibly making this score a lot closer is if they do the same thing that they did against Stephen F. Austin. This game reminds me a lot of the Stephen F. Austin game going into the game. He's back.
Let's go.
What I was just telling Will was the only way JSU is going to possibly stay in this game and make it a closer score is if they do the same thing that they did against Stephen F. Austin. And this reminds me a lot, like going into the game, it reminds me so much of the feeling before the SFA game. This reminds me so much of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And apologize. My Wi-Fi just decided to drop me for no apparent reason. So I do apologize about that. But anyway, like I said, looking forward to this rivalry, looking forward to what it does for the ASUN. I hope both teams have fun.
Well, I think it'll be a fun one. Well, I wish this had more riding on it. Early in the year, I thought this could have an AQ riding on it, even though Sam Houston was, the premier favorite for the AQ7. I thought that this could potentially have some more playoff implications than it does riding on it. So it's unfortunate that it doesn't. But in future years, like you said, I think this will be a heck of a game to look forward to, and I'm glad we will have it on the schedule for years to come. But just to be clear, UCA is going to win. So moving on into our playoff outlook segment here, we're gonna go through the AQ7, talk about some playoff scenarios and what we think can happen. And this is why I'm glad Rev's on tonight, because Rev has a lot of good playoff takes. And Rev's been around FCS football for a long time, can kind of look into the mind of the committee and tell us what they might be thinking, even though it changes year to year. But I'll just go ahead and throw it to you. What's the outlook for the AQ7 this year, like from here forward with playoff teams?
All right. So first of all, Sam controls their own destiny because they've really made it through the hardest part of their schedule, right? The exception is they have EKU still, right? If Sam goes undefeated, it's going to be really hard to not give them a 2 seed. I don't think they would get a number 1 seed if North Dakota State manages to go undefeated as well, and North Dakota State beats South Dakota State and wins the marker. And the reason why, it's the analytics aspect of what they look at. It's the strength of schedule. Sam Houston has the 61st toughest strength of schedule right now, right? They have the weakest out of all the schools in the top 10. So it's really hard to say to them that, hey, you've really earned that seed. Yes, you are the defending, or as Casey Keeler calls them, the attacking national champions. But they really, outside the AQ7, in which the teams that are in second place are all trying to basically implode, with the exception of EKU, they haven't played anybody. They took 2 bye weeks. They played Southeast Missouri, who is the bottom feeder of the OVC, and they played Northern Arizona, who was great. They beat Arizona, but they also lost to Northern Colorado, right? It's really hard to look at their resume and say, wow, they're deserving of a number 1 seed. And it would be, I don't know if they would look at a school like Villanova or a school like SIU to say, hey, wow, look at how these 2 schools have gone with their conference schedule, and say, hey, maybe one of those 2 schools deserves a top 2 seed. Of course, if North Dakota State loses, then Sam will probably get the number 1 seed just based upon the chaos that ensues. And if the road to the playoff goes through Frisco or goes through Bowers, I mean, Sam has never lost at Bowers in the playoffs ever in their history. They managed to win down there, and they've managed to do real well. Now, when you look at the second bid from the AQ7, it does come down basically to Eastern Kentucky and Stephen F. Austin. And here's why Stephen F. Austin is still technically in it right now. If SFA were to win out, they would be 8-3. And if they win out, they have a win over Eastern Kentucky, and they have a win. They'll have a win over Central Arkansas, which, I mean, doesn't look as great as it would have at the beginning of the year. They would still be 8-3 with losses to Sam Houston, Jacksonville State, and Texas Tech. Of course, their out-of-conference schedule is pretty weak, too. They did beat Tarleton, but they also played Mississippi Valley State, and they played Lincoln, a new school in California. That's not going to help them if they don't have 8 wins. 8 wins, I think, gets them in. I think it gets them past the bubble. But if they go 7-4, they're not going to get in, because the conference, the AQ7, is not strong enough to support a 7-4 team getting in over some of the other schools in the CAA or the Big Sky or the NVFC. Now, so Eastern Kentucky, the same point, they went out, they go 9-2, right? There's no way you'd keep them out of the playoffs if they went out. Now, I don't think they're going to, because that means they beat Sam Houston. And I don't think they're going to beat Sam Houston on the road. I just don't think that's a thing for them. But at 8-3, Eastern Kentucky easily is going to get in. So that's why I think when you look at it, Sam is going to be a top 2 seed when this is all said and done. As an SFA alumni, I hate to say that, but they're going to be a top 2 seed, I think. I don't, like I said, North Dakota State wins out. North Dakota State's going to get the number 1 seed, but Sam will get number 2. And I think you'll see either whoever wins basically out of SFA and EKU is going to get that 2nd seed if SFA manages to go unscathed the rest of their schedule. Now, if there's 2 8-3 teams, that wouldn't happen, because Eastern Kentucky managed to beat Sam and lost to SFA and finished 8-3. Then I think you have some more chaos ensue. But let's be honest here, Sam is too darn good of a team. I don't think EKU has it yet to hang with them. So that's why I think that's why it's the winner of SFA and EKU who will get the second bid. I do think the AQ7 gets 2 if they have an 8-3 team.
Yeah, I don't even know if I should say anything, because you kind of said everything that I was thinking. I think it comes down to Eastern or Stephen F. Austin. And if I had to predict like who I thought would get it, I think Eastern's probably the better team, but I think SFA's probably got a better chance to win out. And that game is also in NAC, and that's a long trip. I know you're not super far into Texas, but I mean, you're talking going from the easternmost part of Kentucky to Texas. So that's a long trip. And again, I don't know if they'll fly or not, but that we saw SFA last year. They were the better team in the spring or in the fall last year. So if I had to predict, like, I think this team would get the second bid. Like I said, I think Eastern's probably the better team, but I think SFA stands a better chance to get the second bid from the AQ7. But that's just how I feel. Brandon, how do you feel?
So I have a question, actually. Should Eastern go through their schedule and lose to JSU? Actually, let's say they lose to SFA and JSU. And SFA would still have a 2-loss conference record, and JSU would only have 1 loss. Would the AQ7 still get 2 bids in, or is it a 1-bid conference?
At that point, I think it's a 1-bid that's a tough one.
Because also, Florida State is also getting to the point where they might be bowl eligible.
What does bowl eligible even mean in FBS anymore? I mean, it's like
so
if
that
you
that win for us over Florida State looks a lot better.
I mean, it's great that they might get to go to the Piggly Wiggly Bowl and and Mobile, but I don't know if that. Here's the thing: a win over a P5 team is a win over a P5 team, right? That's what it is. Even if they're in a down year like Florida State is, it's still a good win. But the thing is that Jacksonville State, you look at their resume, they have such other. I mean, losing to UT Martin, if UT Martin goes undefeated in the OVC, that might not look so bad. But if UT Martin loses to Austin P like you and I think they're going to, then that loss kind of hurts some more, right? The fact that they couldn't even compete against Sam Houston, it hurts too, right? If that scenario happens, I don't even want to take a guess, because that's going to throw such chaos in there. And of course, if someone manages to beat Sam Houston, that's going to cause even more chaos when it comes to the AQ7 and how it goes. Come on, EKU, because I thrive for chaos. That's what I love. Like I want to see some chaos just because it's fun. It makes seating discussions and stuff a lot more fun, because it's really boring when you go, well, Sam Houston's going to get the 1 or 2. Like that's not fun. Let's get some more chaos. It's been fun in the FCS the past couple of weeks seeing like Eastern Washington lose, right? As much as I love Eastern Washington, and I actually really do, it was kind of fun to see them lose. Sorry, Kyler, if you listen to this, but it's true. Seeing South Dakota State lose in overtime and then seeing them just completely lose on Hobo Day, which they always do against you and I. This is the sort of chaos I like, because it kind of gets you, in my mind, it gets you ready for playoff chaos. Yeah. Because you're starting to get those exciting games. But no, I don't. If everything goes as planned, it's gonna be Sam Houston, and then whoever wins out of SFA and EKU. But of course, SFA would also too have to win out the rest of their schedule. That means they can't like stumble against UCA, and that's a distinct possibility. Because we go to Conway for that game, and the Stripes are a tough place to win on normally. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm kind of bummed we're only doing this 1 year, the WAC ASUN challenge. Yeah. I kind of wish that we had a couple more years of this, or maybe we could get an annual challenge between the two conferences for games going forward.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, right.
Like
cool. Because this is
Ted Gumbard. Ted Gumbard, if you're listening, make it happen.
Well, I mean, I had Jeff Hurd on. He's only commissioner until the end of the year. So whomever they bring on, I hope they're watching these things and seeing what's going on. But like, this would be awesome to have it. I think it would help grow both the brands, right? Yeah. And especially as both conferences aspire to go to FBS, let's work together and make this a yearly thing. I think it'd be great.
And even carry this challenge over to the FBS.
Yeah, there you go.
One thing, that a lot of times we've been missing, like the teams that are in ASUN now, as far as strength of schedule goes, is good out of conference games. And I think that if the top half of the WAC and the top half of the ASUN are, playing non-conference games, that just bolsters our strength of schedule. And that way at the end of the year, you can't be like, well, Sam Houston's strength of schedule sucked. And well, look at their out-of-conference games. They played, UCA and Jacksonville State. And any given year, those could be 2 ranked games. And so that'd be impressive. But final thoughts on the playoff scenario. I do think I was going to say this earlier. If chaos does ensue, I think the playoff committee could take the easy road and give Sam Houston a bid and just say screw everybody else, because we can give a 6th bid to the Valley. or a 4th or 5th bid to the CAA that they may or may not deserve, but they can give it to them and not feel bad about it. So,
which I hate to admit, I did my own bracketology today, and I have 6 Valley teams in.
It's a legitimate possibility. I mean, if you listen to
there's 6 that easily deserve it. That if the season were to end today, like there's 6 that you could easily argue should be in.
Literally the top 6 teams in the conference. Like,
well, and you think about it, the Big Sky is going to have a bunch of teams that Weber's not completely out. I mean, they're a team that they're on the bubble if they win out, but I don't know. They've got a signature win now, and that's something that really, unless somebody beats Sam Houston out of the AQ7, no one's going to have. Other than, you could argue that an FBS win is a signature win for Jacksonville State, but I don't think they're still in the playoff picture. And 2, an FBS win doesn't trump everything.
Yeah.
What I found interesting was doing my bracketology, I actually looked at the CAA. There's only 2 teams that are deserving of a playoff spot. When was the last time there were only 2 teams from the CAA that were deserving?
Yeah. I mean, Rhode Island's kind of the past 2 weeks has shown that they had the benefit of really honestly a softer schedule. Sorry, Joe and Sean, don't want to talk bad about your team, but yeah, really the CAA doesn't, outside of JMU and Villanova, there's really nobody else in that conference that's deserving of a playoff seed. Or not a playoff bid, not even, and even there, Villanova's the only one deserving of a seed right now. I don't even think James Madison would get a, they would probably get a seed based upon their history, but I don't know. I think there might be some other schools you could argue are more deserving of a playoff seed right now over James Madison.
No doubt.
Yeah, there were I had the Southland getting 2 bids, and then I had the SoCon almost getting 3 bids in.
Yeah.
Southland getting 2 to me is a stretch. Not because I don't think UIW is good. I'm not saying it's a stretch that they get 2. I'm saying I have a problem with UIW and Southeastern getting a bid. I think Southeastern's the runaway favorite. And I think Southeastern's good. Don't get me wrong. But there were times that the Southland was a 1-2 bid league when we had the talent or the powers, the Texas 4 and UCA in the conference. And so I don't know that, UIW's body of work is going to be impressive enough for me to feel like they,
Well, they have an FBS win. But again, it's Texas State.
Yeah,
it's FBS name only, right? The thing that you're seeing, I think, now in the Southland is they're playing each other twice this year, and it's hard to beat a team twice. It's absolutely hard to, and I think that's what you saw this past weekend with UIW. I want to see the committee just forego regionalization and put SLU against Eastern Washington in a playoff game. I want to see that. I want to see Barrier versus Kelly and in a freaking Madden style 70-63 sort of playoff game. That's what you get out of that game.
Oh yeah, you're gonna get one of those A&M LSU games, except it's not gonna take overtime.
No, like that's what I want to see. I agree with you. I think as it stands right now, you would see 2 out of the Southland. I think you'd see 2 out of the SoCon also, because I think out of the SoCon it's gonna end up being East Tennessee and Mercer, and I don't
Mercer,
know.
really? That's who I excluded.
I think that's it's either Mercer or VMI, and I don't know. Like I don't know. It's kind of hard there because there's 3 teams that are potentially deserving of a playoff bid, right? But again, look at who VMI is also lost. They lost to the Citadel, so they have bad losses on their resume. So I don't know. Again, it's sort of tough. And of course, if there's only one Southland school, then I think you'd see 3 from the SoCon to counteract. I think you would see all 3 from the SoCon get in. So, man, it's just fun. This is the fun, best part of the year to start doing bracketology now.
Yep.
We only got 3. You got 3 weeks left, 4 weeks left. Like this is great. This is what gets me excited about our level of football.
I was gonna say, thank God for a real playoff.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
thank God for
absolutely
an absolute real playoff. Like, all right, that's the thing too. About we talked about on the WAC podcast, we talked about the CUSA and all that going on. And, the thing about JMU moving to the Sun Belt, I think it's great for JMU. They're going to get more money out of it. It's going to be great for all their sports. Like, it's a good move. But at the same time, there's some people who think, oh, we're going to get a chance at the CFP. No, you're not.
No.
You're not going to get a shot there because you're going to see the power schools tighten that up. You're going to get a chance.
Unless JMU completely runs the table in the Sun Belt, which I do not see that happening.
No, I don't either.
If they go into their first year of eligibility for postseason and go undefeated, then yeah, I expect you to be highly ranked, but maybe not high enough to be in the playoff, but possibly a New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah. I don't see it. I mean, that's the thing. I think you'll see, they're going to get the R&L Carriers Bowl in New Orleans, which is great. New Orleans is a great city to go party in. So, but I that's the one reason why I'm still, I like the way the FCS does their playoff. We give the committee crap all the time, every year, saying that they leave out teams. And it's really hard because there are some teams that you can argue deserve it. And they get left out. But I think doing a playoff that big is the right way to do it. I wish that the FBS level would expand their playoff further, utilize their bowls, and get a true representation of, from each conference in there. But that's a pipe dream. That's not going to happen. There's so much money at that level that doesn't make sense to do it. So
I have a question regarding Conference USA. If FCS teams do not make the jump, do you think Conference USA has no choice but to drop to the FCS? And if that is the case, would they possibly maybe call the ASUN and maybe merge with the ASUN?
I think as a conference, I mean, let's be honest, Florida International shouldn't be playing FBS football, right? They shouldn't be. I'm interested to see what happens with Middle Tennessee State and Western Kentucky and see where they land. I think that's going to be the final, like the final, just, like nail in the coffin for the CUSA. Louisiana Tech has made so many people mad that I don't know if nobody wants them. They basically crossed every bridge and burned it on their way, doing it. I would like to see, if you look at the schools that are remaining, I would like to see the Eastern CUSA schools partner with the ASUN, bring the ASUN comes up. I would like to see Louisiana Tech, UTEP, New Mexico State partner with the WAC, move up there. But the problem with that too is if you look at the conference base, I mean, can Northern Alabama go FBS? Eventually, and the counterpart, could Dixie State afford to go FBS? There are schools that may not be able to jump to make a jump so quickly. So yeah, I think this Conference USA is probably, as we know it, is dead as a conference, especially if Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee get poached somewhere else. Like there's just nothing left. And it's sad and I think you're going to see the same thing happen to the American in probably 10 years because they made the same decision that Conference USA made. They went after markets and not established teams. Right. I can't believe they did that, but they did. But of course they panicked because they lost their bread and butter out of their conference. So yeah, I think you'll see something happen. I think you'll see some lines blur there. I think, but I don't know. Maybe you'll see the schools that are remaining play independent for a few years until the WAC and ASUN are ready to move up and plant their flag. So it'll be interesting. I hope the WAC commissioner or the future WAC commissioner, I hope the ASUN, I hope they're reaching out to the schools saying, "Hey guys, let's partner." I find
it very interesting that Liberty basically told Conference USA, absolutely not. Yeah. You're losing the teams we wanted to compete against. Absolutely not.
Yeah, Liberty,
which is good for the ASUN because they chose the ASUN over Conference USA.
Yeah,
which to me
Liberty doesn't need the Conference USA.
They don't.
The Conference USA needs Liberty.
Yeah, there's no benefit for Liberty to join the Conference USA in football. There's absolutely no benefit, and move their other sports over. That's the other thing too, is that you got to look at it from an all sports perspective. Conference USA basketball is going to be weak. They're going to they're looking at maybe adding teams like UNC Green. I think UNC Greensboro maybe to help with basketball, but that conference, there's nothing there. You look at it from all sports perspective, the WAC is a stronger basketball conference. Why would a school like SFA, who is a basketball school, drop down after coming up out of the Southland, right? That doesn't make sense. I've heard other things too, where they're saying, well, let's Conference USA go look at the XDSUs, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, or go look at the Montana schools. Great thought. But the thing too with that is, does it allow NDSU to stay in the Summit League for basketball? If the answer is yes, and it's a football only membership, then by all means, North Dakota State should take that if they ask them to do it. But North Dakota State doesn't have the all-around athletic budget to have their teams travel to Florida for basketball or for baseball or for any of those other sports. Like, same thing with South Dakota State. And that's the thing that I don't think people are looking at, is they actually have to look at the athletic budgets, because I think Conference USA would want these to be moves for all sports, because they still have to pad their other programs too, because they're losing, it's not just football schools, they're losing all sports schools, and that's going to hurt. I mean, that's what's hurting them too.
Which like you said, they're biting themselves in the butt if they're not pursuing football only moves. So that's all I'm gonna say. We are way past the hour. I just need to get into that.
No, sorry to take that longer than the hour mark, guys. But
no, you're good. That was kind of the elephant in the room, especially with the plans for the ASUN and WAC to when they formed, it was like, hey, we're probably gonna try and go to the FBS, in the near future. So it's definitely relevant. So, but we are out of time for this week. So we appreciate you listening to Around the ASUN. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at Around the ASUN. That's where we interact the most. Make sure you're following the Rev on Twitter and listening to his podcast. Rev, go ahead and plug your podcast. Tell us about it.
Oh, thanks, man. So you can find me as the Rev SFA on Twitter, and then the podcast is Straight Out of WAC, the Pigskin podcast. You can find it as part of the FCS Fans Nation group. So if you're liking and subscribing to the channel now and getting notifications for Around the ASUN on YouTube, you'll get it from me. I'm probably going to start putting it on Anchor, but I don't know. The past 2 weeks we've just gone live, and it's been a lot more fun doing it that way. So we might just keep it off Anchor until next year. So appreciate you all having me on. This is awesome. Glad you two behaved and then go after each other during the game. You kept it very civil. I'm sure next week's episode will be fire also, as we talk about the results of this game. So once again, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on, and we hope you can have you back soon, because we appreciate your opinions. So Brandon, thanks for being on here as always, and we will see you next week. Yeah, Roll Bears. Whatever he's doing, he's saying okay because he knows that they're going to lose. He's saying it's okay.
You know this.